hope you are all well. We're moving on to topic 3 of our human impact unit. So this is impacts on land, and I hope you enjoy what you've learned today. So land is a natural resource. We get it. We're not contributing to land, but we do use land for a lot of different resources. So we can use it for agriculture, which is using land to produce food. Although that's a benefit to us, sometimes it could drain wetlands, irrigate the deserts, or cause deforestation. We could also use land for mining, so obtaining resources beneath the surface, like metals, fossil fuels, those things. And we also use land for development. So we use land to make homes, to house factories, and to house those stores. So those are considered development uses. Okay, so we use it for agriculture to produce food. We use it for mining, to obtain those resources beneath the surface of the earth. And we use it for development. So homes, factories, stores, those things. Okay, so soil is so important to us, and we need nutrient-rich or fertile soil for successful agriculture and for a healthy ecosystem. So it's important to maintain good soil management. Soil also absorbs, it stores, and it filters water. And decomposers break down the remains of dead animals and plants and recycle those nutrients back into the soil. So remember, decomposers are like the natural recyclers. There's also 4 layers of soil. So the first layer is called a litter. That's where you find the dead leaves and grass, so the first layer that we see. And then there is topsoil. That's the second layer from the top. That contains nutrients. It contains water. It could hold pockets of air. It might contain some rock fragments, and it also might even contain some dead or decaying organisms. Okay. Then layer 3 is subsoil. There you could find more water. You could find more air pockets, even more rock fragments than the topsoil layer, and you might see less decaying organisms on this third layer. And finally, the last layer is bedrock, and that's the basis for the new soil. Okay, so litter layer is the first, topsoil, then subsoil, and then lastly bedrock, which is the basis for new soil to accumulate. So here is a picture depicting all of those layers. So the litter, the topsoil is right here. Then the subsoil, you see those bigger rock fragments. And then the bedrock. Okay, so litter, topsoil, subsoil, and then bedrock. Okay, so sometimes if we have a lack of soil management, this may cause erosion, or just naturally we can see erosion happening. So that's when particles of rocks in soil are moved. They could be moved by air or water, all of those things, but plant roots help prevent this from happening. So if we do more deforestation, that could cause more erosion. So it's important to us to keep those plant roots present to prevent erosion from happening. Okay, we could also see some nutrient depletion that happens from planting the same crops year after year. They're obtaining the same nutrients year after year, and that may deplete the nutrients. Decomposers have no time to replenish those soils. There's not a break for them. So if we keep planting year after year, that causes the nutrient depletion, and decomposers can't really keep up with that. To combat this, farmers can add fertilizers to help this, but it also leads to water pollution, so there's pros and cons to that. So we could alternate our crops or leave out a plot of land for the next season to help prevent this nutrient depletion. So if we alternate crops, we might plant beans in one section and then lettuce in one section and potatoes in one, and then alternate each season for the nutrients and the decomposers to keep up and replenish that soil. Next, there's this desertification. That's caused desert-like conditions in soil that were once fertile. Okay, so causing desert-like conditions in soil that was once fertile and nutrient-rich. That could be caused by drought, so there's not enough water, overgrazing, so if there's a farm with a bunch of animals and there's only one plot, overgrazing that plot may cause desertification. And also deforestation may cause this as well. We also use land for landfills, which is holes where waste and debris are placed. And once full, they're often covered. There's usually a little pipe for the gas control, like methane and things when they break down. And they're usually reclaimed as parks, but they're never reclaimed as housing or agriculture, okay, because there might be some pollutants there. Okay, so they're often covered and reclaimed as parks, but never housing or agriculture. And if it's not if the landfill's not managed properly, waste can seep into the soil and eventually the groundwater, polluting both the soil, which may affect plant growth and agriculture growth, and even the groundwater, which may affect us because we drink the groundwater. Okay, so earlier I talked about wetlands, but what are they? Wetlands are an area of land where water covers most of the soil for most of the year. You may know it as like swampy areas, marsh, or a bog. All of those things are wetlands. It's a perfect site for breeding for some animals. It could help for development of some animals. It's used for a habitat for a lot of organisms, and a lot of organisms feed at this wetland, so it's super important for an ecosystem. It also acts as a natural sponge to collect water, so without them there's going to be a ton more floods. Okay, but us as humans, we sometimes can change the flow of water and cause problems like destroying the habitats because they're super important, remember. It may increase flooding, like we said, and even erosion. Okay, so through that, we must be sustainable when thinking about forest management. There's a huge use for trees and plants. Trees and plants provide food and shelter. They release O2, oxygen, through photosynthesis. They absorb carbon dioxide and other pollutants from the air, so they're important in maintaining that just a balance in our ecosystem. They absorb rainwater, so they prevent floods. They hold soil in place to prevent erosion. And again, they're providing resources like food and seeds and wood. So super important to maintain trees and plants, right? So to think sustainably, we might use the forest in ways to maintain that resource for future generations. So we may plant a tree for every tree cut, or plant frequently. And there's also a sustainable forestry cycle. So there may be a new forest, and then we slowly thin out some of those mature plants while we plant a tree. And then it's a cycle. So we pick and choose the plants. We're not just deforestating like all of the forest, right? Okay, so we must maintain the sustainable forestry through logging. So again, instead of just clear cutting and cutting down all of the trees in one area, we should selectively cut. So cut down some trees in an area, but selectively cutting costs more and it takes time, which is why so many, we often use clear cutting. But it's bad that it destroys all habitats, and again, soil is more vulnerable to erosion. Okay, so if we were to choose, I would choose selective cutting, but there's two types. There's clear cutting, which cuts down all of the trees in one area, and selective cutting. So you're cutting down some trees in an area. All right, that's all I had. Thank you for watching, and I hope you've learned something new.